Live from our Seton Hill University studios, this is Westmoreland on the Gridiron on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here's your host, Sean Meyers.
Welcome into another edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean Meyers, Dan Flickinger come to you remotely here tonight every Wednesday at 7 p.m. for another special playoff edition. And Dan, we weren't sure if we were going to have a show this week. It kind of depended on how our Westmoreland County teams did. The good news is 2 of the 3 Westmoreland County teams have moved on. So we'll talk to head coach John Ruane of the Penn-Trafford Warriors as his team prepares for the 5A semifinals. And down in 4A, Matt Humbert of the Belle Vernon area Leopards will join us in just a bit as well. But the good news is we do still have 2 teams alive. Penn-Trafford takes care of business pretty decisively. Belle Vernon area was in a bit of a battle, but ultimately pulled away. Unfortunately, the other Westmoreland County team, Mount Pleasant area, came up short. But the fact of the matter is we have 2 teams that have very legitimate championship hopes still remaining.
Yeah, how about it? Once again, semifinals for both teams, Belle Vernon and Penn-Trafford. They want to get over that hump, not only getting to the WPIAL championship game, which both teams have done, but they want to take that next step and win a WPIAL championship. But first things first, they have to clear a big hurdle this week. And talking with John Ruane, I know you had spoken with Matt Humbert. Both of those guys certainly aren't looking anywhere past who they have to play this week because 2 really good opponents in Pine Richland and TJ are on the other side.
Yeah, let's take a look at how those teams advanced to the semifinals. Go back to the quarterfinals last week. We mentioned we had 3 county teams that suited up. In 5A, Penn-Trafford wins pretty lopsided against Fox Chapel. That was the number 10 Fox's team that had upset Upper St. Clair before that. 42-14, the Warriors move on. The entire second half played under the mercy rule. You can go back and watch that. We had the video broadcast of it. And from my perspective, I was there on the call, and I know you were right next to me as the producer, or I guess co-producer, obviously.
That's right. Hayden was the main producer, sure.
But, this was all about the start for Penn-Trafford. They really asserted their dominance, and it became on the very first play of the game. They recovered an onside kick attempt by the Foxes, went down, scored. I believe they scored touchdowns on all 5 of their drives in the first half. Really, this is what you want to see from a Warriors team rounding into form.
No doubt about it. And I thought it was interesting, Sean, when you talked with John Ruane last week, and you asked him point blank, and he's going to tell you how he feels. You asked him point blank, do you think you guys are going to be rusty? How does it kind of equate after coming off of a bye week? And he said, that remains to be seen. We'll see how it goes. We tried to simulate as much as possible live game action last Friday when they were off, or I guess 2 Fridays ago now, when they were off, they hit a little bit more than they normally do in normal practice just to kind of simulate a game. And man, did they look fresh. I mean, they got off to, as you mentioned, a terrific start. Nolan Morasti recovers an onside kick. And Coach Ruane told me this week that was the first time that Morasti started in that position on special teams. And he said, what a great job by him to be able to recover the kick because he knows he's going to take a hard hit. And he did. And he recovered it. PT scores, I think, under 2 minutes into the game. And every possession in the first half, they did exactly what they wanted to do. And it's all because of the guys up front. And Coach Ruane also mentioned the H-backs, the fullbacks. I mean, it was a full team effort. He thought that was the best game blocking wise of the whole season for PT. And they're certainly going to need to do that this week against Pine Richland, a really physical team. But that's a great start. And again, you just don't know what your team is going to have coming off the bye. He said it was a concern for them, but obviously they had a great week of practice, and it really showed against Fox Chapel. So PT, still a pretty fresh team. When you get up early like that on Fox Chapel, you get some guys out of the game, so they'll be ready to go this week for sure.
Yeah, really, almost the entire second half, they were able to play a lot of their reserves. Conlon Green, the other Green, came in to play quarterback, and he's about 240 pounds, which is just impressive sight to see. To me, the defense in the first half, it was what we've come to expect. It was the 3 players up front. I saw a lot of Joe Enoch. I thought he was terrific. Declan Ochendowski was getting in the backfield. They made life difficult. Zidane Thomas had been a very accomplished running back for the Foxes. He had almost no running room. And Kai Patterson, a converted receiver playing quarterback, just didn't have time. I think maybe the fact that Patterson shifted to quarterback caught Upper St. Clair off guard a little bit the prior week, but it seemed like Penn-Trafford knew exactly what to expect and how to defend him. Maybe that's where that extra week of practice and preparation came in hand.
Yeah, John Ruane also said that they had two kind of vanilla game plans in seeing who they would play, whether it be Upper St. Clair or Fox Chapel. So they kind of game planned, for Fox for a while. And then, of course, when they saw the new starting quarterback for Fox Chapel against Upper St. Clair, they obviously had a full week of preparation for him, and then they caused turnovers. I mean, one was kind of self-inflicted on Fox Chapel with Declan Ochendowski recovering it, but I think that pressure certainly had something to do with it. And then you look at the interception as well by Carter Green in the first half. I mean, really, it was just all Penn-Trafford all over the field.
And I continue to say it, as impressive as he has been running the football and making timely throws, I think Carter Green is just as impressive defensively at times. He throws his body around, and we see him coming up with another big play with that interception. I think that was one of the turning points, certainly, in that first half. So if you want to go
for a guy like him, Sean, to be able to come out in the really halftime and not really have to suit up in the second half or play much. I mean, those guys that go both ways, and there are a number of them for Penn-Trafford, I think that's really important. I talk with John Ruane about that really every season, and there are a lot of teams like Belle Vernon, that get up on teams and can get guys out of the game and keep themselves fresh. And that's really important. I mean, are you going out hoping that you blow out a team? I don't know necessarily that that's in your mind, but when you get up on teams and you get guys out of the game, you have a less risk of injury, and you can keep those guys fresh for the future.
And it came in complete contrast to their opponent this week because Pine Richland was resting nobody last week. They played a game that came down to the wire against Peters. Again, if you want to go back and watch it, we have the video. Penn-Trafford defeating Fox Chapel 42-14. Now 9-2 on the season for the Warriors as they have been on a complete roll. Down in 4A, Belle Vernon area, it wasn't quite as easy for the Leopards, but they did defeat a pretty game Newcastle team. Final score 45-20. Leopards remain perfect. They are now 9-0. And to me, this was a good test for them. And I know Coach Humbert said, well, it's not quite Thomas Jefferson, but a lot of the same ingredients that Newcastle had, a running quarterback, a pretty talented receiver. So ultimately, I think the fact that it was a very close game for most of the contest, especially in the first half, that's a good test for the Leopards. They now know what to expect.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, they had 2 bye weeks in the last 4 weeks total, I suppose, because they had an open week before McKeesport. They played McKeesport, looked very good in that game. And then the week after, obviously, a bye week going into the playoffs and then coming into this game against Newcastle. So I think Belle Vernon maybe had to knock off a little bit of that rust early on. And I think maybe they're still kind of working through that a little bit. But even though they were outgained in the game, their defense was able to force turnovers, man. 4 turnovers forced for Newcastle. I think that says something. If a team's driving on you, they can get some yards on you. But if you can eventually force those turnovers, make them drive the field on you, and you can get those turnovers, the more plays that the offense has to go. I think that says something. And certainly when you have Quentin Martin and Devin Whitlock, one of those guys, or actually both of those guys, are going to break a few big runs for you. So, it maybe wasn't the prettiest game for Belle Vernon, but in the playoffs, you win in advance. And I think, as you mentioned, Sean, it was an important game to maybe get, BVA a little bit more, ready, I guess, for the rest of the playoffs, and a big game, obviously, against a really good opponent this week in Thomas Jefferson, especially, having to knock off that rust.
Yeah, and tip of the cap, Chris Hood, the quarterback for Newcastle, and then Mike Wells, who Coach Humbert said was maybe the best receiver they've seen all season. Mm-hmm. So those two certainly provided a major challenge. Whitlock didn't have maybe the same success running the ball that we typically have become accustomed to, but he did break one long, 170-plus yard touchdown, even though he was under 100 yards on the ground, did throw for 145. And so this is sort of what we've seen from the Leopards, is they don't throw it a ton, but they are efficient in doing so. He was 6 of 8 for 145. So I really think that's going to be key, is we know that Thomas Jefferson is going to try to take away Whitlock's ability to run because they got burned by it before. They might not shut him down. I don't think they will, but they may force him to throw a little bit more. But it seems like he's been pretty efficient doing that, and he certainly has plenty of weapons to distribute to.
Well, and he's such a wild card, Sean. As I mentioned, I think during the Belle Vernon McKeesport broadcast, when he drops back to pass, nobody knows, maybe including him, what is going to happen next. And it's so hard to how do you defend that? It's very, very hard to defend a guy that he himself, is scrambling around, not knowing exactly what he's about to do. with the football, and then all of a sudden the receiver pops open because they're used to it, or he's able to scramble down the field and get a huge gob of yardage, if not a touchdown. So that's so hard to defend, and I think Bill Chirpak would say the same thing. When you have a wild card on the other side of the ball, it really is hard to, stop them, let alone slow them down. So it should be certainly an interesting matchup. Even though they know what Devin's going to do, they know what Quentin can do. Can you stop it? And on the other side for Belle Vernon, Thomas Jefferson's going to want to run the football. They can throw it a little bit too, but they know they're going to want to run the football. So, I mean, that matchup up front will be huge.
Keep this in mind as well. With Whitlock, he can extend plays. So as a defensive back, you might be able to cover a receiver for 2 or 3 seconds, but it's a lot harder to cover them for 5, 6, 7 seconds. And that's what Whitlock's able to do, extending the plays by scrambling.
And again, the Belle Vernon receivers are used to that, right? I mean, they're accustomed to that. So that's why it makes them even more dangerous.
So once again, Belle Vernon area remains perfect. They are 9-0. Newcastle finishes at 7-5, and that shows some of the disparity, right? Newcastle has played 12 games. The Leopards had just won their 9th game, but Newcastle, a team that really had been battle tested, they put up a fight, but ultimately it's the Leopards who move on in 4A. Unfortunately, we can't say the same for our local team in 3A. As Avonworth beats up on Mount Pleasant area 49-7. This game was over pretty early as Ian Sam just went absolutely nuts for the Antelopes in the first half. He scored 6 touchdowns on 10 carries for 224 yards. And to me, when you look at just looking at our 3 teams, I think it sort of paints a bigger picture. There is still a significant disparity between the top teams and the second tier of teams, even now that we've made it to the quarterfinals of the playoffs, because Mount Pleasant area was the number 6 seed. They had a very strong regular season. They had a dominant playoff victory against Burrell, but they just look completely overmatched against Avonworth. And again, really never were in that game, unfortunately, for the Vikings. They did not play well. Maybe the Antelopes played their best game of the season, but it's rare to see some lopsided scores of that fashion once you make it to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, excuse me, another round into the playoffs. It certainly is. 244 yards for Sam, and he just went crazy against Mount Pleasant. But I don't know. What can you say? Maybe just a bad matchup for the Vikings, and obviously Avonworth perhaps played their best game of the year, like you said, but still a pretty solid season for the Vikings. They win a playoff game. I know it was against, a struggling Burrell team. I guess they did make it in the playoffs though. So congratulations. Jason Fazikis gets his first ever coaching head coach playoff victory. And, you had, Robbie Labuda scoring a touchdown in that game. He obviously had a great season. Aaron Alexson had a great season too. The Vikings, again, just kind of overmatched in that contest. What else can you say, really?
Yeah, and Labuda will be back. He's going to be a cornerstone piece in the future. So the way I look at it, Mount Pleasant this season, it was a step forward, right? Because they had made the playoffs a few years. They not only get back to the playoffs, they get a pretty good seed, they get a home game, and they get a victory. So you can look at it as a step forward. But to me, there is still a massive hurdle to clear to become one of those elite teams. And they know exactly what they need to do now. They saw an elite team in Avonworth, a team that has played in championships and won championships. And that's, if they want to contend for titles, that's the level they're going to have to get to. And unfortunately, they just had no answer again for Sam. He was dynamic in that one. So the Antelopes move on. They were coming off of a bye as well. So they were well rested. They were able to prepare for Mount Pleasant, whereas the Vikings played that first round game against Burrell. Their season ends at 6-5. The Lopes improve to 9-2 and move on. Those are the 3 Westmoreland County High School teams. There were a couple of college teams in action and pretty lopsided victories for our Westmoreland County colleges. You and I made the trek to Lock Haven to see Seton Hill win.
Are you warm yet, by the way, Sean?
What's that?
Are you warm yet?
I still smell like gasoline. I'll tell you that much, unfortunately. But
well, that's a separate story, I guess.
Yes, that is. Yeah, I thought out. It took me a little while. I'll say this, that Seton Hill did not have to worry about thawing out because that was a hot start, and it continued the entire way. Got a little ugly in the second half, admittedly, but the most points scored in program history. And when you want to finish on a high note, I would say winning by 52 points certainly qualifies. So they conclude their campaign at 5-6. Lock Haven really struggling at 1-10. You can go back and watch that one. If you do, you're going to see touchdowns in all different fashions for Seton Hill. I don't think I've ever seen a team get 3 touchdowns either by blocking or recovering fumbles on punt miscues. But that's exactly what happened in the first half for Seton Hill. Just really a wild game.
It was absolutely wild. And by the way, we were on the roof there, and it was absolutely freezing with the wind. So that's why I was asking Sean if he was warm yet, because I'm not. How about Tegan Hahn? I mean, he was the beneficiary and he helped cause some of those things on those bad punts. And he was special teams player of the week, I believe.
Yes.
The Greensburg-Salem Golden Lion
Which
product
usually goes to a kicker. I mean, typically you'll see a kicker, maybe a return man, but you don't often see just a traditional special teams player, a coverage guy or whatever that gets it. But well-deserved for him in his swan song.
Playing in his final regular season game, playing in his final career game for Seton Hill University, and it was nice. We were broadcasting the game. Dave Kiefer sent us a text when he was doing all of his damage, and Coach Kiefer said it was great to see Tegan doing what he was doing. And then, of course, he gets Player of the Week. But, yeah, what a great accomplishment this year for the Seton Hill Griffins. When you look at a couple of those games, Gannon, Edinboro, probably very winnable for Seton Hill, and they end up losing both of those games. Had they won one of the two, we're talking about a winning season for the first time since Coach Day's senior year in 2008. But this was the second best finish in their program's history. And, there were games where things weren't pretty. I don't know that it was, the prettiest victory, even against Lock Haven, even after all those points, that they did score. But
a lot of penalties.
Ton of penalties. What was it, 26 or something like that at one point? But a win is a win, and especially a lopsided win at that. They took care of business on the road. And this is definitely a season now where Seton Hill can build off of going into the future. Coach Day said after the game, listen, we have a lot of players coming back on the defensive side of the ball. He said, we can be a really, really good team next year. So, we'll see what happens in the offseason in terms of recruiting and see if they can bring in, anybody that can help them right away. But really good, building block for Seton Hill. And remember that this is just Coach Day's second season as a head coach, third year overall, with, of course, the 1 year canceled because of COVID.
Yeah, again, you can go back and watch that one. 59-7, Seton Hill defeats Lock Haven. By the way, Jason Green probably needs to get a fine-tooth comb. He is in charge of the stats at Seton Hill, and maybe see if he can find one extra yard for Logan Weiland, the running back.
How about that? I wanted to mention that. So Logan Weiland ties for the PSAC rushing lead with Melvin Blank. Is that his name, right? From Gannon?
Yes, correct.
The two guys had the exact, I think it was 1,296 yards or something like that rushing. How does that happen? Has that ever happened in PSAC history? I mean, I know it can, obviously, but two guys finishing with the same exact amount of rushing yards. I think Jason needs to do that. He needs to watch back to all the film and maybe get an extra half yard in there for Logan, I think.
Yeah, and make sure that he doesn't accidentally watch any plays where they credit him with too many yards.
Or a minus, yeah.
Yeah. So congratulations to the Griffins, and I think very similar type of story. I thought there were so many parallels between Seton Hill and St. Vincent all season long. Two teams that have really struggled. They have new head coaches, or recently hired head coaches. Aaron Smetanka with St. Vincent, and his team almost identically. 52-7 finishes on a high note, defeating Bethany. So they finish at 500, 5-5. Although I say finish, they will have a bowl game upcoming, but at least in terms of the regular season, 500 record for the Bearcats. And again, this is much like Seton Hill, a team that needed to take a big step. I think they did that, and certainly the record is proof of such.
Again, something that, Aaron Smetanka and this group can build off of. And the one thing that I do like, Sean, now, I mean, obviously there are many, many, many successful coaches that are older in age, but Dan Day, Aaron Smetanka are both younger guys. And I think that players nowadays respond to that, energy that Dan has. Aaron is a great offensive mind. He played at St. Vincent just like Dan played at Seton Hill. I think the players respond to that. So I'm really excited to see both local colleges having some good building blocks this year.
Absolutely. Congratulations to both Seton Hill and St. Vincent for their big victories to conclude the regular season. That'll conclude all of the Westmoreland County scores. Now, quickly, we'll look at the top performers. Now, again, this is a pared down list because there's not as many games, and certainly in Westmoreland County, we only had 3 teams represented. But we look at the top passer, rusher, and receiver from around the WPIAL, and then mix in any Westmoreland County standouts as well. top passer from the quarterfinals week of the WPIAL playoffs, Josh Jenkins. Listen to this. Stowe Rock's quarterback, 13 of 14, 411 yards. That's absolutely ridiculous for a Vikings team that has put up 60-plus points in each of their 2 playoff games to this point in 2A. The only Westmoreland County name on the list, Devin Whitlock, we said before, very efficient in his own right, 6 of 8 passing as he compiled 145 yards through the air. Top rusher was Raekwon Troutman of Cornell, 255 yards on the ground, leading Cornell to a quarterfinals victory. There were 4 Westmoreland County standouts on this list, however. Cade Yacomelli of Penn-Trafford, he got 140 yards on the ground. Quentin Martin of Belle Vernon area, 126 yards rushing. And Carter Green of Penn-Trafford and Robbie Labuda of Mount Pleasant area, each 101 yards. Lastly, the top receiver from this past week in the WPIAL. No surprise that it's also a Stowe Rock's Viking, Zay Davis, 6 receptions, 181 yards. Those are the top performers from this past week of WPIAL postseason play. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will run down all of the brackets, 6A through 1A. And remember, special interviews with Penn-Trafford head coach John Ruane and Matt Humbert of Belle Vernon area. That's upcoming as we continue right here on another playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
You're always on the winning team with Bowser Chevrolet of Monroeville and Bowser Chevrolet Chippewa. Visit BowserChevrolet.com 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and get the power of Bowser in your hands. With the new Chevy vehicles arriving weekly, reserve yours now at Bowser Chevrolet. See the full lineup of Chevy cars, trucks, and SUVs at BowserChevrolet.com. Bowser Chevrolet, where the power of Bowser is yours.
We know speaking with your teen or your young adult about drugs and alcohol can be challenging, but is necessary. Remember to have a conversation, not a confrontation. Establish good communications, break through barriers, and be firm but loving. Here are some helpful tips. Choose a good place and time to chat. Talk with openness. Actively listen. Offer empathy and support. For more information, visit us online at WEDACINC.org. Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission. Prevention is key.
At D'Annunzio's, our menu is extensive with an abundance of selections. The next best thing to being at one of our 3 locations is having our frozen food and jarred sauce in your own home. For our frozen food selections, we have wedding soup, pasta fagioli, lasagna, stuffed cheese rigatoni, ricotta cavatelli, and potato gnocchi. Our jarred sauces include the original, smooth, marinara, and tomato cream. These products can all be found at our restaurants or your local grocer.
Welcome back to another playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron, 7 p.m. every Wednesday here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. I say every Wednesday. We don't know if this is going to be the last show or not because at this point of the year, we're kind of following our Westmoreland County teams and see how they do. Let's take a look at all of the brackets, and we're going to hear from a couple of those coaches here in Westmoreland County in just a bit, John Ruane of Penn-Trafford and Matt Humbert of Belle Vernon. But we will begin with the largest classification. And ironically, the largest classification had the smallest playoff bracket. That was in 6A, where we've already reached the championship week. It is a little bit different than the rest of the WPIAL. Number 1 seed Mount Lebanon earned a bye to the semifinals, and they move on courtesy of a 28-17 victory over number 4 North Allegheny. So it'll be number 1 Mount Lebanon against number 2 Pittsburgh Central Catholic as the Vikings doubled up Seneca Valley 42-21. So number 1 seed versus number 2 seed. Mount Lebanon got a bye to the semis, as did Pittsburgh Central Catholic. 2 of the best teams. I think most people expected this would be the matchup. And it will take place this Saturday, November 20th, at Norwin High School, 7 p.m. kickoff for that one. So anyone in Westmoreland County that wants to see the 6A champion crowned, head out to Norwin. But a little bit of a wrinkle, Dan, that it was revealed last week in the victory for the Blue Devils. They won that game without the services of their starting quarterback, Joey Daniels, for the entire second half. So you have to wonder, without maybe potentially their quarterback, that could certainly change things for the Blue Devils, a team that's rolling.
Yeah, I would definitely think so. I mean, losing a guy like that, and I know, when you look at a team like Mount Lebanon or a lot of these good 6A teams, they do have a lot of depth, but you lose your starting quarterback potentially for a WPIAL championship game against Central Catholic. I mean, that's going to be really difficult, but we'll see what happens. Maybe he'll be good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly those are two really, really good teams doing battle. So that one should be terrific in 6A. Again, they are already at the championship week. The rest of the WPIAL, it is the semifinals upcoming, and that's the case in Class 5A. Let's take a look at how the bracket unfolded this past week. Number 1, Moon, had its hands full with number 9, Woodland Hills, but ultimately the Tigers advanced 21-13, knocking off Woody High. So Moon is in the semifinals. They will go against number 5, Penn Hills. A little bit of an upset as they defeated number 4, Gateway, in a terrific game that came down to the wire. 23-20. John Ladon's team moves on with Penn Hills.
How about
advancing.
Gateway missing the potentially game-tying field goal at the end of the game there? I mean, that was certainly heartbreaking for the Gators, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, that's a team that I think once they got the Birch brothers via transfer, people said Gateway's the team this year, and they just never quite lived up to it. Now, they were awfully close defeating Penn-Trafford. That one came down to the wire. Ultimately, the Warriors hung on, and what I think was a 5-point victory.
Yeah,
and then
close.
they lose by 3 to Penn Hills. So they were that close, but unable to get over the hump. The good news for them is they will have Brad Birch for 2 more years, and he is an absolutely outstanding quarterback. But for Don Hall, a little bit of disappointment as the Gators come up short. So number 1, Moon, number 5, Penn Hills. That will take place Friday, 7 o'clock at North Allegheny High School. On the other side of the bracket, we mentioned it before, number 2, Penn-Trafford moves on convincingly 42-14, defeating the number 10 Fox Chapel area Foxes. Penn-Trafford will face number 3, Pine Richland. The Rams edge Peters Township 20-14 in the quarterfinals. That was a game in which Peters Township led for the majority. We knew once Penn-Trafford really got up that they were going to have a revenge opportunity, whether it came against the Peters Township team that they've lost to multiple times over the last 4 years, or against a Pine Richland team that bounced them pretty lopsided from the postseason a year ago. So this game will take place Friday, 7 p.m. at Gateway, which I think that has to be a really nice spot for Penn-Trafford, right? It's not too far, very familiar with playing there in Monroeville, a little bit more of a hike for Pine Richland. But again, this is a matchup where it's 2 of the best teams. I think each and every year you can say 2 of the best teams. And the Warriors have certainly some vengeance on their mind with the way that the 2020 season ended at the hands of the Rams.
Yeah, they do. And I talked with Declan Ochendowski earlier this week, and we're going to have that interview during our pregame show on Friday. Hour-long pregame show, by the way, starts at 6 o'clock. And he did say, we have a chip on our shoulder, but, the bottom line is they want to get to Heinz Field no matter who they're going to be playing. But the fact that Pine Richland knocked them out of the postseason last year, they certainly do have that chip on their shoulder. Man, you got to marvel with Pine Richland, right? I mean, you have all of those things that happen in the offseason with Eric Kasparovich getting fired and just the backlash in the community. And look where they are. They're back in the semifinals. And they didn't have an amazing season, this year.
It was a poor start for them. People thought, well, it's not the same Pine Richland team without Kasparovich.
At the beginning of the year, they had those few losses there. But look what they've done. And even last week, they had trouble against a Peters Township team. They're the 11th seed, but they're pretty darn good. And they come back and get the win. So I think, you got to credit Pine Richland. I mean, this is a team that has gone through adversity, certainly with the players and, Steve Campos, the new head coach. I mean, what a really challenging position for him to be put in after really a beloved coach, gets fired like that. And
to be honest, really I think there were some people who were probably rooting against Coach Campos because they thought what happened to Coach Kasparovich was unfair, and they probably didn't want to see someone else come in and have success.
Yeah. It was just not a winning position to be in, I guess. But obviously it's worked out for him because he's been able to make sure this Pine Richland team stays together and gets to the WPIAL semifinal. So this should be really an excellent game Friday.
Yeah, and I know you talked to Coach Ruane about this, and we're going to hear from him momentarily. Cole Boyd's the quarterback now, maybe not a household name for Pine Richland, but he's done a nice job. He's passed for more than 1,100 yards, and it seems like obviously Coach Kasparovich, he knows all about getting the best out of his quarterbacks, but it's carried over to Steve Campos, where whoever's playing that position for Pine Richland, they're going to be dangerous, maybe more so than Penn-Trafford with Carter Green, who, again, doesn't have to throw a lot and really didn't throw that much against Fox Chapel. That might be one edge. The passing game might favor the Rams in this one.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it always comes down to ball control for Penn-Trafford, and when they have that ball control, they can't take penalties. And John Ruane says this, every week. And Kate Yacomelli, I believe, said it after the game on Friday to Hannah. Like, if we don't hurt ourselves, we're going to be in okay shape. I mean, we're going to win games. And I think he even said nobody can beat us if we do what we can do in terms of taking care of the football and not committing penalties. And, when you're this Penn-Trafford team, and you really have to credit, you look at Penn-Trafford offensively, it's Cade Yacomelli and Carter Green. I mean, how many other guys really touch the football on a consistent basis? Nobody. But that goes to show not only how good those guys are, but even more how good the offensive line is, the H-backs, the receivers blocking, and, of course, John Ruane coming up with a bunch of different formations to so the defense doesn't quite know who's getting, the football. So I think that's been impressive for Penn-Trafford. But again, if they're controlling the football, if they go on some long drives against Pine Richland in this game, they cannot afford to take penalties and get behind the sticks because, as you mentioned, Sean, then they got to maybe put the ball in the air, and that's really not their bread and butter. Although I will say I think Carter Green has progressed in the passing game, but now is the ultimate challenge if PT does have to throw the football.
And one thing that you said sort of caught my attention about John Ruane does such a great job outflanking and getting formations that put the defense sort of in
an unenviable Sean Benjamin
position.
Term right there, isn't it?
Yes.
Outflanking.
Yes, absolutely. Almost every coach that I talked to going against Penn-Trafford this season said we have to be aligned correctly defensively. We can't be out of position. That will be a test for Pine Richland. Let's be honest here. I think you give the coaching advantage to John Ruane this week, right? I mean, he is certainly proven he knows how to win in the postseason. He's made it to championships, even though he's not won a championship as a head coach. On the other side, Steve Campos, it's a little bit more unproven.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's a great point. I mean, and you have a guy in Coach Ruane that not only has been there and done that with Penn-Trafford, obviously his years at Gateway. He played in how many WPIAL championships and semifinals and playoff games. So, and he's pretty familiar with Gateway as well, the field, not that, in football, what does it really matter? But I think that Penn-Trafford does have certainly an advantage there. Although I will say, even though Pine Richland does have a lot of new faces, I mean, that program's used to playing in general in playoff games. So I'm sure they'll be ready.
Absolutely. Should be a terrific one. Looking forward to it. You mentioned it, by the way, with our hour pregame. We will have that broadcast again on video this week. So very excited to be able to bring that to you.
Yeah, thank you again to all the Penn-Trafford businesses for making it possible, because without you, we would not be able to do it. So thank you very much to all of our sponsors.
Absolutely. We'll now hear from John Ruane, as our Dan Flickinger had a chance to talk to him earlier this week. Now it's the longtime head coach of the Penn-Trafford Warriors, John Ruane, giving his thoughts about this week's matchup.
And, Coach, I feel like I'm having some deja vu from last season. Here you are again in another semifinal. It's against Pine Richland. And, again, you guys put in so much hard work during the regular season. I know maybe some people think it's a foregone conclusion that PT is going to be here, at the end of the year, and that's a credit to you guys. But congratulations, because I know how much hard work really does go into it.
Yeah, thank you. It's credit to kids from, the first week of January when we decided to set the tone, and we've had awesome senior leadership, and they've worked their butts off, and I can't say enough about this senior group and the leadership that we've had.
Let's talk about that win against Fox Chapel before we, turn our attention to Pine Richland. Earlier in the week, you'd said to Sean Meyers that, we'll see what happens after this bye week. Obviously, that's not something that, you get every year. And you guys look like you came out fresh. I mean, you scored all your possessions in the first half. Under 2 minutes into the game, you were already up 7-0. So I'm sure you were very excited about the way you started.
Yeah, I mean, to the kids' credit, I thought we played as fast as we've ever played, honestly. And I mean at all positions. I'm talking about linemen, tight ends, H's, receivers, the two guys carrying the football for the workload. We played very fast off the football, and it was noticeable early. So maybe that was 2 weeks of a little bit of anger build up or whatever it might be. And then we flipped it on defense, and I thought we played equally as fast. So, Yeah, I mean, the kids are very confident right now. We've gotten better every single week, and I think they're ready to chomping at the bit to go play, and they came out and did that.
Do you think the team looked fresh after a bye week, or was it just focus, or both? Or
I do. I thought that we were nervous about the first week because you didn't have an opponent, and we thought maybe practice would kind of be lethargic or just not as crisp, and that was the opposite. I thought we were very competitive. We prepared for St. Clair and for Fox Chapel because we didn't know who would win. And the kids took both game plans. No, there were simple game plans until we knew who we were playing, but made quick adjustments, and then they were ready to roll. I mean, they were excited as soon as we realized we were playing Fox Chapel, and prepared their butts off all week.
Yeah, I think Cade said that after the game, that the practice was certainly, you guys were definitely focused during the week. Now, Fox Chapel comes in riding high after a huge upset win over Upper St. Clair. How important was it for you guys to get off to the start you did to kind of like dash their confidence a little bit and dash that momentum that they had coming into the game?
I think it was really big. They were definitely riding high, and that's a good football team. They're well coached. Coach Loughran's a really good football coach. He's been there and done it for a lot longer than I have, that's for sure. But I thought that we established the tone of the game on the first play. I mean, we had, I want to say, 4 pancakes on the first play of the game. I mean, we just came out and really showed that we were going to be physical in that game, and our kids didn't lay off.
Now, Fox Chapel took a page out of your playbook a little bit with an onside kick to start the game. Obviously, you guys prepared well, and you were able to, I don't know if it defend it well, play it well, I guess, on special teams. You had to be happy about that.
Well, Nolan Morasti actually made his first start at that position, and for that to be his first play was remarkable. I mean, it was an awesome play by him. That's not easy to do, believe me. I mean, it's a bouncing, awkward kick with 5 untouched guys running at you, and you're going to get killed as soon as you touch it. So credit to him. What a play, and it really saved the day because that could have went the other way for sure. Did
you have any inkling that, I mean, are you guys always just kind of prepared for that? How do you prepare for
our front line? Our front line knows you got to wait till the ball is past you before you start bailing. We harped that, and they did a good job with it.
Seemed like your size up front, the guys really dominated the game in the trenches on both sides of the ball, allowing Carter and Cade to kind of do their thing against Fox Chapel. And I know that's been a key to your success all year, but did you kind of see that as well?
Yeah, I thought actually arguably the best game we played up front all year. And it went beyond the 5 guys on the interior. Like I said, the tight ends and H-backs I thought were fantastic. Just really physical. Fox Chapel's defense has set the edge hard. So we had to win that battle, and I thought we did. But the guys in the interior, I thought they were lights out. They played low and hard, and they got on those guys.
And defensively got some turnovers, which obviously in these big games is pretty big.
Yeah, in a playoff game, you turn the football over, it's a big deal. So I think we created 2 or 3 of those, and that we converted those into points both times, and that was humongous. And it's the seizing of momentum that's such a big deal with that.
And I know, Ian DeMary's been dressed for the last couple of weeks, but I think he got his first carry since he's been out, right?
No, he had a couple. He had a couple against Franklin and Latrobe.
Okay,
but he's
how's he kind of feeling?
He's getting a lot better every single week. We're trying to add some stuff to him. It was a nagging injury. It was a tough injury to deal with. He was out 6 games, and he's not 100% yet, but he's Ian, and he's tough as nails, and he's going to do whatever he can.
Coach, we talk a lot about Nate Schlesinger throughout the year, but as you advance deeper into the playoffs, get into these games against these really good teams, how much more of a weapon does he become, not only kicking field goals, but extra points and touchbacks and the whole deal?
Well, and I'd go with the opposite order. The touchbacks are the most important thing to us. Right. When a team has to drive 80 yards, we feel good about our defense, and it's been a real blessing to have him this year banging those touchbacks and making teams go the length of the field. So I cannot stress that enough. But yeah, he's poised. He's been in every situation now as a 3-year kicker, and he is absolutely a weapon that we will continue to utilize as much as we possibly can.
Turning our attention to the Pine Richland Rams, first of all, what stood out to you watching their game last week? They had a great comeback against Peters. What kind of stood out to you?
Just that they have character, and they pulled out a tight game at the end, and they're a physical bunch, and they've had a couple injuries, and next guy up is their mentality. Obviously, they've done a great job, and you knew they would. They're a very talented group. New coaching staff has done a good job. They're in the semifinals still, as Pine Richland always seems to be, and it's a really good football team that found a big time way to win there in a tight game.
Obviously, a lot of new faces on their side, including you, as you mentioned, a new coaching staff. Are there any similarities to last year's team? Do they do things a lot differently?
I'd say it's similar. It's definitely different, though, at the same time. they're still very good up front. They still stun a lot on their defensive line. They still have active linebackers who can run and make a lot of plays in space, and they have an athletic secondary. They love throwing the football still, and they still have a really good power run game. It's why they've been good for a very long time. They know what they're doing, and they do it well, and they have some big, strong athletes that take care of business.
And much like you guys, they lost a couple of games beginning of the year. They seem to be playing maybe their best football when it counts. I mean, is that something you look at, their film at the beginning of the year compared to now? Is there any differences, similarities there?
Yeah, well, like I said, they had some guys out, so I think it took them a couple games here or there to adapt to that. But I think they have adapted to that, and they are playing their best football. And it's going to be a real big challenge, and it's a team that's battle tested and been there and done it. All the kids in their lineup have been on this team, and they know what it takes to win. So that's going to be a big challenge.
One of the main guys you want to have to deal with this year is Cole Spencer, since he's off and wrestling now. But their new quarterback, maybe not as mobile as him. I mean, does that allow you to do different things on defense in this game?
No, in fact, their quarterback is, I think, pretty mobile.
Okay.
He runs really well, and he can throw the deep ball. And I don't think we can change really much at all, to be honest with you. We just have to be in position and make sure we out-leverage them a little bit and get people down on the ground and make sure we don't give up big plays.
What would you say your keys to victory tonight then would be?
Our possessions have to count. You go 3 and out and feed them the ball back, or turn it over and feed them the ball back, you're asking for big trouble. So our possessions have to be long, they have to be sustained, they have to end in points. Defensively, cannot give up home runs, whether it be a run play or a pass. We've got to make them march the field and hope for a penalty, a turnover, something detrimental to them. And now we're in the semifinals. Special teams are paramount at this point. So we've got to win the kicking game. We've got to have good field position. We've got to put them in bad field position. That goes with Nathan kicking touchbacks and our punt game doing what they're supposed to do and getting some good returns to flip the field. So all 3 phases in the semifinals if you want to move on to Heinz Field.
Coach, as always, thank you so much for all the time this year, and hopefully we'll get to talk a bunch more because if you win this game, obviously it's off to Heinz Field and hopefully off to the States, but I know you're just focusing on Pine Richland this week.
I don't think we're going to look past Pine Richland.
Coach, thank you so much for your time. Good luck tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This is how far we'll go to treat heart, lung, and vascular disease. 15 millimeters. At Excella Health, we believe less can be more. That's why we use minimally invasive surgery in the treatment of coronary artery disease, heart valve repair and replacement, lung cancer, and conditions of the peripheral arteries. For our patients, that means less blood loss, less post-operative pain, and a faster recovery. It means that a disease process that took decades to develop can, in a few hours, be reversed. And for us, it means providing the most advanced and sophisticated care for patients in our region. The Heart, Lung, and Vascular Institute at Excella Health. Expert care here.
The all-new 2022 Mitsubishi Outlander at Sindel Mitsubishi. Drive one today for $239 a month, plus an industry-leading 10-year warranty. The all-new Outlander at Sindel Mitsubishi. Get thunderstruck.
And we roll along here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Another playoff edition here, Wednesday, 7 p.m. on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Thanks to John Ruane for taking the time. He's so focused and intense, and I know all coaches at this time of year are, so that you really do appreciate when they take the time because 10, 15 minutes out of their week, they're probably thinking, that's 10 minutes less that I get to prep for a game. But they understand that comes with the territory.
Yeah, I sent him a message on Sunday, Sean. It was funny. I said, Coach, when's a good day this week that we can record these interviews? He said, tomorrow, 5:45, and that was Monday. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Just get it out of the way early. That way you can focus on everything that you need to later on in the week. And again, I also spoke with Declan Ochendowski. That'll be part of our pregame show, 6 o'clock on Friday. The one question I didn't ask Coach Ruane is about playing at Gateway. I didn't ask him that on the interview. I did ask him that off the air. And I said, what's it like, playing there for this semifinal? I said, do you like it? And he went, and that's about all he said. And I understood his response. So
yeah, very familiar with Pete Antamarino Stadium there in Monroeville. By the way, I did not mention it before. If Penn-Trafford moves on, or even if they don't move on technically, the championship will be on November 27th. That's a Saturday at 6 p.m. at Heinz Field. So keep that in mind, especially hoping that the Warriors get their fingers crossed. It will be a Saturday night game, Saturday at 6 p.m., November 27th in the 5A championship. Let's take a look now at the 4A bracket. As we mentioned, the number 1 seed, Belle Vernon Area Leopards, well, they advanced to the semifinals. They remain perfect, winning against number 9 Newcastle 45-20, playing at the beach for the final time this season. The Leopards go out with a W. They will go against, we mentioned it before, their old foe, number 5 Thomas Jefferson. Really no surprise that these teams are meeting again. The Jaguars really manhandled number 4 Hampton 42-14 to set up this semifinals. It will be played at West Mifflin High School Friday at 7. Other side of the bracket, number 2 Aliquippa continues to do it each and every year. They make quick work of number 10 Laurel Highlands 36-0 in favor of the Quips. They move on to the semifinals where they'll face number 3 McKeesport area. The Tigers defeat number 6 Armstrong 35-21. So the Riverhawks got their first ever playoff victory the prior week. Now their season concludes. So number 1 versus number 5, number 2 versus number 3. That Aliquippa McKeesport game will take place at Cannon McMillan High School Friday at 7. Really almost went according to chalk. Again, Thomas Jefferson, the 5 seed, not the 4 seed, but really 4 special teams. I'm not surprised that it's these 4 in the Final Four. And from the Belle Vernon and Thomas Jefferson perspective, I think we could have both said this is going to come to fruition after the regular season matchup. We probably could have said they were going to play again. Didn't know if it would be in the semifinals or in the championship. It now takes place in the semifinals. We're going to hear from head coach Matt Humbert momentarily, but this feels like a championship game already. I know it's not at Heinz Field. It's going to be at West Mifflin, but it feels like it is certainly a championship game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anytime these teams play, man, it's, something more is on the line. And I would even argue that during the regular season, it almost felt like a championship game. And, at the time we maybe thought it was for the conference championship. Obviously McKeesport then came up with an upset of Thomas Jefferson, was able to, get to that final week and play Belle Vernon for the conference championship, in which the Leopards won. I think it's going to be a really good game. And, it took Devin Whitlock's heroics late in the game to beat Thomas Jefferson the first time around. Now they're playing in a neutral field. TJ has a chip on its shoulder coming into this game. And I think maybe what's important, Belle Vernon, if you ask Matt Humbert this, he'd probably say, well, listen, this is a WPIAL semifinal game. Obviously, we better be intense. We better have that energy. But I think that's important for Belle Vernon to maybe match that for Thomas Jefferson, because TJ is going to be coming in, with really, I think with a lot of emotion, a lot of adrenaline, a lot of energy after the fact that Belle Vernon beat them earlier this year. And I think, again, the Leopards have to match that. I think they will, and I think it'll be a good game.
And when you look at some of the key players in this one, for Belle Vernon, we talk so much about Whitlock and Quentin Martin. Cole Waitman is a guy that will be very important, but we don't know how much he's going to play. He was limited. I don't think he played on offense at all, or if he did, it was very limited in the victory against Newcastle. Now, he's the defensive anchor, so if you say, okay, well, you can only play him on one side of the football, they're going to pick defense because that's where he shines. But if he's not at 100%, which he probably will not be, that could be maybe the difference in a game, because he is, I think, behind the top 2, he is the third most important player. And defensively, he might be the most important player for the Leopards.
I couldn't agree more. And I try to give him pub as often as possible, because he has impressed me so much this year. I think people that, don't follow Belle Vernon on a regular basis and kind of have seen them this year, like you and I have, it kind of stops with Quentin Martin and Devin Whitlock, but not for Belle Vernon, man. There's a lot of unsung heroes on this team. And Cole Waitman is definitely one of them. And you're right. If he's going to play on one side of the ball, you definitely need him on defense. But when we had our Plays of the Week segment that week, I pointed out his huge block on Whitlock's game-winning run against Thomas Jefferson. I mean, he laid a huge block in that game. So, he's very valuable on offense too. But again, you're hoping that he can at least play defense, if not both sides of the ball, because obviously it's going to be a very physical game and you need him. So hopefully he'll be healthy enough where he can make an impact.
Injuries will be paramount this week. They were the first time these teams were met. Remember, Quentin Martin had the 2 touchdowns in the first half for Belle Vernon area, went out with what we thought might have been a serious injury at the time early in the second half. Fortunately, he's been back for more than a month now, and it looks like he is absolutely playing at his best. But on the other side, Nick Bryan left that field on crutches for Thomas Jefferson, their Division I talent along the offensive and defensive lines. I talked to Coach Humbert. He said, yeah, he's back, and he is an absolute force once again. So it's good that some of the key players who were injured in that game are back healthy. You get to this point in the season, no one's 100%. You understand that. You just hope that guys can gut it out, go out there and play close to full capacity. When you look at the Thomas Jefferson side, I think we know the recipe, right? You're not going to throw the football all over the field. It's going to be using that very talented offensive and defensive lines to control this line of scrimmage, and then the running game to kind of the pound and ground. It's Elias Lippincott as the primary running back, but Joe Lexie, their quarterback, he's a terrific runner. And I think Matt Humbert pointed out pretty clearly in the interview you're going to hear that is the number one guy they have to stop on the ground. It's not their running backs, Lippincott or Murga. It's Lexie, their quarterback, that they're worried about beating them with his legs.
Well, and I'm not surprised that he said that, because the first time these teams played, Lexie had 100 yards on 18 carries and 3 touchdowns as well. So, I mean, Belle Vernon got introduced to him in that game, and so that doesn't surprise me. He also had a 2-point conversion too. And again, much like, Penn-Trafford, that PT is going to run the football. That Thomas Jefferson's going to run the football. They line up in that I formation and just come at you. And it's not easy. And that's exactly why you need Cole Waitman to be able to be healthy enough to make an impact, because when he is healthy, he does in a physical game like this. And if it's not him, I think it was Logan Hoffman, I think, was playing actually offense last week, I believe Coach Humbert said, in place of Cole Waitman. But defensively, you need guys to step up for sure. And I think it's important too, Sean, that you don't give up big plays. I mean, I don't know that necessarily TJ is a huge big play offense, but that you got guys like Quentin Martin coming up in run stop from a safety position. You can't miss tackles on these guys.
And I think that's the biggest difference in the first game between these teams is Thomas Jefferson had these methodical, long sustaining drives where they're getting 3, 4, 5 yards every single time. But on the other side, it was the big play and the big strike ability for Belle Vernon. I remember talking to Coach Mark Katarski about that. I said, it feels like Thomas Jefferson, when they score, they're going to take 8 minutes off the clock and use 12 plays. And maybe that leads to 7 points, and maybe it doesn't. For Belle Vernon area, you might see 2 drives that stall out, and then they hit a 75-yarder. And that was sort of
that's what we saw last week, kind of, right, against Newcastle.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it's, can you sustain drives the entire way if you're Thomas Jefferson and then finish them with points? Or if you're Belle Vernon area, can you hit enough big plays and splash plays to make the difference? Should be, in my opinion, maybe the best semifinals game in the entire WPIAL.
Not going to argue with you. We'll see what happens. Yep.
And the winner will move on to the championship. We're hoping that Penn-Trafford gets there. We're hoping Belle Vernon area gets there. If they do, it'll be easier for us.
Yes.
Because they will play back-to-back. The winner of that game in 4A will play against either Aliquippa or McKeesport at 3 p.m. Saturday, November 27th at Heinz Field. As I mentioned, I had a chance to talk to head coach Matt Humbert. Let's now hear that interview with the head man for the Belle Vernon area Leopards. Matt, first off, congratulations on getting back to the semifinals. I know that you don't take that for granted, but what stood out about last week's victory, winning by 25 against a pretty game Newcastle team?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when you kind of look at Newcastle and what they do on both sides of the ball, I think they were kind of a little underrated coming into that game. So, what was nice was obviously just to be able to get back to that semifinal game and be able to fight to get to the stadium with the yellow seats. So, I think one thing that is kind of a good thing for us is, they had a big quarterback that liked to run the football, and, with Thomas Jefferson, Leski's kind of a similar style. So one thing that was beneficial from that win is we got to go up against a team that had a big offensive line, and they were very multiple in what they did. So it was a good test for our defensive secondary, because, they've kind of haven't been challenged in a few weeks. It's been a lot more. The teams that we faced have really kind of challenged us up front and linebacker-wise. Newcastle really stretched a few different ways, so it was good to see, those defensive backs get a good test.
I saw Penn-Trafford firsthand, and they, much like your team, had that bye in the first round. There was certainly no rust with the Warriors. They jumped out to a massive lead early. Your team was really back and forth with Newcastle until the second quarter things turned in your favor. Did you see any rust, or was it more so just a matter of Newcastle getting some really good play out of the gate?
A little bit of both. I mean, I don't know what you call it. I guess rust maybe is a word that you could use to describe it. I think when you kind of look at it, coming into that game, we played one game in 4 weeks, because, we had a bye week before the McKeesport game, and that definitely was very beneficial for us, because when you're going and defending a team like McKeesport, more preparation time is better than less. But, it was just one of those things where, a couple little bad plays here and there really allowed Newcastle to sustain some drives, and, it was hard to get them off the field. And, ironically, whenever we got the ball, we scored quick. So I think, we scored and they gave the ball right back to them, and then they were able to have and sustain drives. And then, in the third quarter, we had a big turnover right coming off the half on a kick return. We gave them the ball back, which had them a long drive, and then we got down in the red zone twice, and we just, for lack of, a better word of shooting ourselves in the foot, we kind of didn't convert those into 6 points each trip. So rust, whatever you may call it, I just think it was one of those things where, Newcastle was a good opponent, and we kind of shot ourselves in the foot a little bit.
It's certainly not just exclusive to your team, but it seems like there's so many splash plays, and I know that Devin Whitlock is a big part of that, certainly Quentin Martin as well. Do you feel like you have the type of offense that can score one or two plays into a drive with regularity?
Yeah, I think there's times for sure. I think a key with a kid like Devin and, Q is just giving them a tiny little crease. They can usually make something out of it. We had a couple big pass plays last week, and one to our tight end, Logan Hoffman, who was playing in place of Cole Waitman. We had a nice strike to him, and he was able to get his nose in the end zone for a big strike. And that was a first play. That was a first and 10, first play of the drive. Right there was another example of a big splash play with a little play action bootleg. It's just one of those things where our goal, obviously is to come out and eat up time of possession and try to sustain drives, but you can't argue with 6 points whenever you get them.
How important was the defense forcing some turnovers and ultimately holding a pretty good offense to 20 points?
Yeah, I think, when you really look at it, that's the most yardage that we've gave up all year. That's disappointing. You never want to do that. But then when you really look at who they are, they can run the ball, they can throw the ball. They got the Wells kid, number 3. He's one of the best receivers that we've seen all year. He's physical, he's big. He has a knack for the ball. He made two catches that were just unbelievable. We had great coverage on him the entire night. Jake Jetico had phenomenal coverage on him one time when he caught that deep ball. Quentin Martin had phenomenal coverage on him. He batted a ball down, and somehow the bat went to Wells, and he caught it. So then when you mix in Hood running the football as well as he throws the football, that was a dynamic offense that was hard to stop.
Talking to Matt Humbert, the head coach of the Belle Vernon area Leopards, his team preparing for the Class 4A semifinals, and it comes against a very familiar opponent, Thomas Jefferson. You have gone against the Jaguars so many times over the years, so many great matchups. I don't know that many are going to top the one from earlier this year. 28-21, you win in basically a walk-off with a 40-yard touchdown by Devin Whitlock in the final seconds. So when you look back at that game, can you still pull a lot from that, or is it two completely different teams at this point now into the playoffs?
No, I think you can pull a lot from it. When you look at them defensively, they're just so solid in what they do. I don't think they're going to change it. They got a good recipe, and they do it year after year after year. So, they might have a couple of tweaks here and there, but you can't see them switching much up. And then offensively, they are who they are. I think one thing that they've done more of, and they did a little bit versus us, and it was effective versus us, and it's been effective for them, is when they when they kind of get into almost a wildcat look and they like to run Lesky. So I think, that kid, I don't think he gets enough credit for running the football. I think that he's tough and he's physical. Very similar to the Hood kid, just maybe a little more shifty. So like I said, I think it was good that we went up against the offense that we did, because as much as they are polar opposites in terms of spread and tight end fullback driven offense from TJ, they're similar in some of the personnel things of what they like to do. So, I think there's a lot of similarities that will carry over from the first time that we matched up against TJ.
It's often said that sometimes going against a great opponent brings out the best in a team or in individual players. Does that apply to coaches when you go against a legend like Bill Churpick? Does it bring out the best in you as well?
I don't know if you catalog it best. It sure makes you spend a little more extra time, that's for sure. So we always come in Sundays. I'd be lying to say that it wasn't a little longer. I'd be lying to say, our Monday practice wasn't a little longer. So, I don't know colloquially what you kind of do to describe it, but it sure makes you spend a little bit extra time on the film and trying to, cross all your T's and dot your I's.
What is the atmosphere like around Belle Vernon area and amongst your team in particular going against Thomas Jefferson? I know it's not the WPIAL championship game, but it sure has the feel of one, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's almost, I think the pressure's there even more, opposed to if it was a WPIAL championship game, because you're fighting and clawing to get to that game. So, I think in the past, when we've matched up in the semifinals, TJ, in 17 and whatnot, they were just such a dominant team. It was really hard to, get past them twice. I think this year they're extremely solid in what they do offensively and defensively, but I feel we're pretty good as well. So I think we're all anxious to kind of get to Friday, and I think the kids are excited to be able to play in another big game. I mean, I can't say enough about how many big games we've been able to play this year, and this is probably the biggest one, and we've had some big ones.
Going back to that first victory against TJ, was that significant for the mentality, the mindset of the players to finally get over that Thomas Jefferson hurdle? Now they have that belief heading into the second time around that they know they can win?
Yeah, but belief is huge. It's important. When you're dealing with any type of sports, the psyche of student athletes or athletes in general is always important. But, the kids have been part of the program long enough that they've seen the wins over that team and whatnot. And, I don't necessarily think that there is a belief needed. I just think that there's more of a realization the kids need to understand, and I think they do, that, that was the objective that you wanted to do in the regular season to obviously win that game. But, that doesn't matter in November. You can't carry any points over with you in November. You can't hold on to anything that you did, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. So the kids are realistic enough that, that was an awesome win for everyone. But, it doesn't matter at this point in juncture, because the real meaningful game is this Friday.
And to that point, you're in the semifinals with Heinz Field awaiting the winner. What's it going to take to move on to the championship?
I think we have to keep Lesky at bay in the running game, especially. They can sting you in the pass game, but at the end of the day, they want to run the football. And, we're going to have to make sure that when they get in some of their double tight and some of their unbalanced stuff, we got to be able to match up front and within our linebacking core to, not allow them just to get that blow off the ball that they typically give to every team. So we have to kind of keep Lesky at bay with run the football. And then offensively, we just have to be very crisp in our execution, and we got to be able to put points on the board. To win that football game on Friday night, you're going to have to score points. So, I think keeping Lesky at bay in the run game for our defense and us putting up significant amount of points Friday night will be the keys.
Matt, thank you so much. Congratulations on getting the semifinals, and good luck on Friday against Thomas Jefferson.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
That's Matt Humbert, the head coach for the Belle Vernon area Leopards.
When you're in pain or suffering from an injury, all you want is to get back on your feet, back to living your life. At East Suburban Sports Medicine Center, that's what we've done for 35 years. Our staff is skilled, experienced, and compassionate. Our facilities are modern and welcoming, and our focus is on you. So if you want to feel better, play better, and live better, call us today or visit one of our 6 offices.
East Suburban Sports Medicine. Take it from me, Bill Hillgrove, it's the best care, hands down.
Your next golf adventure awaits at Manor Valley Golf Course in Export. Manor Valley offers 18 scenic holes over gentle sloping fairways and the purest putting surfaces around. Manor Valley Golf Course in Export is the perfect place to host your next golf outing, banquet party, or shower. Manor Valley also offers league play and great membership rates. Tee times available. Call 724-744-4242. Visit ManorValleyGC.com.
The Westmoreland Sports Network is available on social media. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and like our page on Facebook for the latest Westmoreland County sports news, WSN broadcast links, scores, game stories, videos, pictures, and much, much more. Also be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for archived interviews and broadcast highlights. The Westmoreland Sports Network is available whenever and however you want it.
Welcome back. We thank Matt Humbert, the head coach for the Belle Vernon area Leopards, for taking the time to talk to me on this very busy week as he prepares for the showdown against Thomas Jefferson on Friday. That will do it for the 4A bracket. Let's quickly look at 3A, 2A, and 1A. Unfortunately, no longer any Westmoreland teams playing in these brackets. In Class 3A, number 1 Central Valley continues to roll as they defeated East Allegheny 48-6. Now, the Wildcats hung in there, but unfortunately for our friend Don Pecora, ultimately just overmatched in the end. So number 1 Central Valley moves on to the semifinals. They will face number 4 Elizabeth Forward. The Warriors edged out a victory against number 5 Freeport 14-6. So number 1 Central Valley, number 4 EF. That'll take place at West Allegheny Friday at 7. Other side of the bracket, number 2 North Catholic defeats Keystone Oaks in a shootout, 48-41. So the second-seeded Trojans move on, where they will face, as we mentioned, number 3 Avonworth, a team that just dismantled Mount Pleasant, as the number 3 Lopes win 49-7 over the 6-seeded Vikings. Number 2 North Catholic, number 3 Avonworth. That will take place at Fox Chapel Area High School. So this bracket went according to chalk, 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. The championship will be noon on Saturday, November 27th at Heinz Field.
What a crazy win for North Catholic, huh?
Yeah,
41. Wow.
I think they had like 7 shutouts coming into the game, and then they give up 41 points, but score enough to win.
That's right.
Just absolutely.
As Mark Katarski would say, you just score more points than the other team. That's it. That's all you got to do. It's simple.
Yes. And by the way, we're going to see the complete opposite in this 2A bracket. Not quite a shootout. We'll get to that momentarily. First, the number 1 seed Steel Valley advances. However, it came at a price. The Ironmen defeat Southside Beaver 28-12. So they move on to the semifinals. They will face number 5 Beaver Falls, a team that knows all about competing for championships, as they defeated New Brighton 40-0. Really a dominant victory for the number 5 seeded Tigers against number 13 New Brighton. So number 1 Steel Valley versus number 5 Beaver Falls. That will take place at Dormont Stadium, Keystone Oaks High School, Friday at 7. Unfortunately for Steel Valley, they will be without far and away their best player, as Najai Burt out for the season. He was the leading rusher in the WPIAL. A terrific player. It's not a one-man team, but you feel like when the best player or the best running back in the entire WPIAL goes out, it completely changes things for the number 1 seed. That's really unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is. And it also just affects the team mentally more than anything. Maybe not more than anything, because this kid's really good on the field too. But yeah, that's just a shame. And I believe something was kind of filed with the WPIAL in terms of some sad things going on from the South Side fans. Now, of course, that hasn't been proven yet, but we'll see how that all shakes out. If you want to Google that and read more about it, you can.
Yeah, I hate to hear stories like that. And Steel Valley, it has so much going on right now with that. Certainly the outside noise from that story with their top player out. And now they go against a Beaver Falls team that's absolutely rolling. That'll be one side of the bracket. On the other side, number 2, Stowe Rocks. I mentioned that they've put up some points. They had a quarterback who went for over 400 yards and a receiver who had nearly 200 yards. They put up 62 points against number 10 Mohawk, 62-14 Stowe Rocks rolls. Keep in mind they scored 61 points against Shadyside Academy the prior week. So some quick mental math They scored 123 points in 2 playoff games. They will face number 6 Sarah Catholic. I mentioned the shootout in 3A. This was the opposite, as the 6-seeded Eagles defeat number 3 Laurel 6-0. That sounds like a 1950s football score.
3 yards to the cloud
Sarah
of dust.
Catholic, Stowe Rocks. That will take place at South Fayette on Friday. Good, a little bit of a throwback type of game there, I think, huh?
Yeah, that's pretty wild though. 6-0. So you have Stowe Rocks 61 points, 62 points, and then Sarah Catholic coming off of a 6-0 win over Laurel.
And by the way, Sarah Catholic the week before scored 61.
They did put up 61 the week before, so there you go.
You don't know what you're going to get in a game like that. So with those 2 semifinals, number 1 Steel Valley, number 5 Beaver Falls, number 2 Stowe Rocks against number 6 Sarah Catholic, the winner will move on. The winners will move on to play at Heinz Field. The championship in 2A will be on Friday. Remember, 2 days at Heinz Field this year, Friday, November 26th, with a 5 p.m. kickoff. Final bracket that we will look at is 1A, where we had a big upset. Number 1 Clairton knocked off by number 9 Our Lady of the Sacred Heart. The Chargers win 29-15, dethroning the Bears, although technically Jeanette was the defending champion. I think most people said Clairton's the team to beat. Well, now it might be the Chargers as they charge into the semifinals. They will go against number 5 Rochester. The Rams 27-7 victory over 13-seeded Springdale. So number 9 Our Lady of the Sacred Heart, number 5 Rochester. That will take place at Martirelli Stadium in the North Hills on Friday. Other side of the bracket, number 2 Cornell takes care of business, ending the Cinderella run for the Leechburg Blue Devils. 46-18, Cornell moves on, and they will face number 3 Bishop Canavan as the lone team remaining from the Eastern Conference. Crusaders 42-14 over number 11 Shenango. So number 9 Our Lady of the Sacred Heart against number 5 Rochester, number 2 Cornell against number 3 Bishop Canavan. That will take place at Montour High School. And I will say this, when we looked at the Eastern Conference coming into this season, I don't think anyone in the world would have said Bishop Canavan will be the last team standing when it comes to the postseason.
No, how about it? I mean, I don't know if Bishop Canavan has a lot of upperclassmen this year or not, but I don't know. I don't want to say this is the last time it's going to happen, but now again, if all the kids are playing for Jeanette that are supposed to, they're probably in this spot. But hey, give credit to the Crusaders. I mean, that's really cool to see them have such a good season. And we saw them, earlier this year when they played Greensburg Central Catholic. It was a really close game. Bishop Canavan ends up pulling away with the win. So it's really cool to see them there. And it's also pretty neat to see Olsh there, especially after the way that, again, I thought they were very classy when they played Greensburg Central Catholic with, the unfortunate deaths of, those assistant coaches there and what they did in that game. So congratulations to them on knocking off the big bad Bears.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's new blood necessarily because Our Lady of the Sacred Heart has been there before and won a championship recently, and Rochester's usually in that position. But some of the lower seeded teams, number 9 and number 5, moving on. And then on the other side, it is kind of some new blood with Cornell and Bishop Canavan. Championship will be played at Heinz Field, 2:00 on Friday, November 26th, to crown the 1A champion. That'll do it for all the brackets. Before we put a bow on this one, Dan, any final thoughts?
Well, here we are, semifinals, and of course the 6A championship have coming up at Norwin on Friday as well. And it's just so hard to believe that we are here.
Norwin on Saturday.
I'm sorry, Saturday, not Friday.
They get their own, Saturday, night in the spotlight.
Is on Saturday. Again, just want to invite everybody to tune into our broadcast on Friday night. We will have, again, Penn-Trafford and Pine Richland from Gateway High School. Should be a lot of fun, 6:00 for our pregame. And, again, thank you to the Penn-Trafford businesses for making it possible. For those that maybe weren't watching last week or didn't hear, the reason we can't broadcast all of our Westmoreland County teams is because of rights fees that unfortunately we have to raise a lot of money for and things like that. So hopefully in the future something will change, but that's where we are right now. So we will have PT on the air this week, and good luck to the Belle Vernon Leopards. We obviously talked with Matt Humbert a lot this year and saw some great things from the Leopards, and hopefully they can win what should be, as you mentioned, Sean, one of the best games in the semifinals and move on to Heinz Field. It'd be really cool to have Penn-Trafford and Belle Vernon, who played earlier this year, playing at Heinz Field against one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will have coverage if either one of those teams move on to the championships. We'll be there with tweets and articles and interviews, all sorts of stuff. And by the way, I should note, I talked to a lot of coaches over the years in various sports, but particularly for football, every coach says this is either the highest of high or the lowest of lows, the semifinals, because just getting to the championship game is such a significant accomplishment and such a memorable moment that when you lose in the semifinals, it's probably the most crushing defeat, even more so than losing in a championship game. So this is really, and Coach Humbert said, maybe the most pressure-packed situation of the entire season for all the teams playing in the semifinals.
Yeah, I would agree with that. For a lot of teams, again, getting to the – now I will say, though, for Belle Vernon and for Penn-Trafford, winning a semifinal is certainly huge. But, they've been to Heinz Field. Now they got to clear that next hurdle. But, again, the first things first, they got some big games coming up this Friday.
Absolutely. Keep in mind, Friday morning, we will have the previews for both of those games on our high school football preview. And then all throughout the week, you want to stay tuned to WestmorelandSports.com. We have a lot of great content, articles, interviews, all sorts of things. By the way,
I also want to say, Sean, good luck to the Greensburg Central Catholic girls soccer team. They're going to be playing for a state championship on Friday morning. So congratulations to Olivia Kruger, the head coach there.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, while we're talking Penn-Trafford, we should mention we're already in hockey season, and we will have the Warriors hockey broadcast upcoming this week. We plan to have a number of PT hockey broadcasts this season. So if you're a fan of Penn-Trafford football, make sure you tune into the hockey broadcasts as well. A lot of physicality in common with those two sports. That'll do it for tonight's episode. However, I want to thank our head coaches from Penn-Trafford, John Ruane and Matt Humbert for Belle Vernon area. Good luck to both of those teams on Friday. For my colleague Dan Flickinger, Sean Meyers signing off. Thank you so much for tuning in to another playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. It's been right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network.
Good night.